Why don't we go ahead and get started, and if others
Sure.
pick up, then we can
I'm okay with
do
that.
it. Okay. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. And what we want to do tonight is to kind of see if you guys have any questions about the first block that we had you guys do, which was block C. Thank you. And any of the cutting. Did you have any problems with the cutting and then block C? Right, go for it.
See, we need our big list that we had last week.
I know.
You all don't know, but we had a cheat sheet on the wall last week to remind
Look
us.
at you, Robin. Woohoo!
Awesome. All right, so what we thought we would do at the very beginning is to have each one of you, as you're thinking back on last week's video, and hopefully you got the video from last Thursday as well as the 2 new videos. I think they came in the same email.
Yes.
But as you're thinking back onto those, describe something that you learned or was new to you in that. And then also if you would share something that you're still wondering.
I have one.
Okay, Robin, you go first then.
So I was chain piecing and just zipping them along, and then I cut and pressed and got ready to put them together and realized that, oh, they all have to go the same direction when you chain piece or they don't fit right.
Oh, okay.
Can you tell me more what you mean when you say they all have to go the same direction?
You were, yeah, so you were stitching on one of the short edges.
Yes.
It has to be the same side of the short edge on all of the sets.
So that the points are facing the same direction.
Or else I would have 2 colors next to 2 backgrounds.
So when you did, so if you had your background on the bottom and your color on the top, you had to do them all that way versus putting the color
Just
on
picking
the,
them up and go. Just picking them up and not paying attention.
yeah.
There was a little trick. Robin, you're not alone in that. I
Yep.
did the same thing.
Yep.
And I had to go back and use my handy dandy little ripper. What I figured out is that if I made 2 piles and I pulled one from each of those piles and put them directly on top of each other, that seemed to help me remember. But there were always a couple that snuck in there one way or the other.
I found that it was one of those mistakes. Once you make it, you remember and you don't make it again.
Okay. So in addition to that, that's something that you learned from that. Is there anything you're still wondering about?
No, I pretty much, I think that with the instructions and the videos, it was pretty self-explanatory and pretty easy.
Okay.
Just long.
Okay.
Were the videos too long, or you're just saying the whole process of piecing?
The process is long when you're making, 54 of these,
Yes.
60
Yes.
of these. And you're pressing.
Yes.
So what I learned was that it takes a while. It takes a lot longer to do 50 of one of the blocks than it does to do the 18 of block C.
Thank you.
Yes. And what I'm still wondering is, am I going to get it right the next time when I make the next quilt? Because I'm going to do another one. So am I going to remember all these things we're talking about when I do the next one?
What I found was I would piece, let's say 20 of the half square triangles together. Then I would stop and go press and then piece more. That way it was forcing me to get up and walk around a little bit. But then I wasn't as tired of sitting at the sewing machine doing that nonstop. So So just an idea of giving yourself a break. Marlene, what did you come away with from the last session?
Well, I have not actually done block C yet. I have done some practice blocks,
Okay.
and getting the points together is not a lot of fun. I have spent the better part of today doing the cutting because I just got the material yesterday,
Right.
and I had to learn how to use the AccuQuilt because this was my first attempt at that. And it took me a while to figure out how to do all of that, and that I could stack material for cutting the strips and then cut, have so many squares and then go do the AccuQuilt and then come back and do more, instead of trying to do all one thing and then move to the next process. It was much easier to kind of put it in steps so that I wasn't constantly doing the same thing.
Right. Good.
Break it up a little bit to give yourself
Yes.
a variety.
Yes, and the material also, standing at the ironing board and stuff. So I needed to move around more. So that's what I learned.
Good.
Yeah.
And do you have any
Wondering?
wonderings of what's to come or anything like that?
No, I've read the instructions and the pattern pretty well, and I sort of played with the different colors of the way I want things to go. So yeah, I had already thought about the placement with the sewing together when I was doing the practice blocks that I did. I thought, oh, you can't just go at this repetitively blind. You really got to pay attention a bit to get.
Yes,
where
the
you want
fewer
them.
the fabrics you use, I feel there's a whole lot more planning than if you use the 15 fabrics.
Yeah, for
So-
sure. I used 5, so
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
Robin, how many are you using?
6.
And Kitty, how many are you using?
Well, that's kind of interesting. I have a fat quarter bundle with about 20.
Okay.
So I'm just throwing everything in and I'm using as many colors as I have. They're all pinks and reds.
Okay.
I just started cutting and I've used up all my fat quarters cutting. So apparently there's going to be a second one in the works. Is fine, but it was just a lot of fun to cut. So I thought, well, heck, I've got it all out. I'm kind of on a roll, so I'll just cut, and I have. And so there's a lot of triangles and a lot of colors, and there will be more than one quilt for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of sewing yet. I will admit, I'm sorry, but it's like I got on that, and it's like, whoa, well, let's just go. So we went to town and just cut and cut and cut. That was kind of fun. So sorry, ladies.
No, you don't know what's an apology. I have to admit, I kind of broke up my cutting. I did, I got all my squares cut because that was quick and easy. But then when I started the triangles and I had to press all the fabrics and, I was like, I kind of did those in groups. And then I would stop and sew for a while, then I'd go back. So I didn't do everything all in succession.
Okay. I do have a question though.
Okay.
For the 4.5-inch squares, if you used a 4.5-inch strip ruler and cross cut, would that work?
No,
Okay.
the 4.5-inch strip ruler and then cross.
To make the
cut.
squares.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought when you were saying cross cut it to cut it into the triangles.
Oh, no, to cut it into squares after you
Yes,
strip.
yes. Yeah, that would work.
Okay.
As long as you have the
But I thought of it afterward.
that rotary cutting, yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good.
What might you still be wondering, Kitty, about all of this?
That was what I was thinking about, actually.
Okay.
And I think just sitting down and getting started with the stitching is going to be it. And I've got so many colors. I'm not too worried about having too many light colors together at this point,
Mhm.
and probably won't have to worry about that. But you know what? It's random. So if it happens, it's just going to happen, I think. And
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
the beauty of random anyway. Because
Yeah.
mosaic tiles, you always see like a couple that are together and it always just looks right, even if they are the same color.
Right.
I end up with a few together instead of, separate. I think I'm okay with that.
Good.
So
Okay, good.
it's
Good,
just
good.
going to be the stitching, and I think I'll have fun with that. So,
Okay.
but
All right.
I'm like you, I have to get up. I can't just sit. I have to bounce up and down and keep moving because
Yeah.
I need to move a lot during the day anyway.
What we need is
So-
to invent a sewing machine that we can take with us while
I
we're
keep
walking.
my iron in a different. I keep my iron in a different room,
Yes,
so I have to get up, so I can
That's a
get
good
my
idea.
steps in for the day too.
That's
So
right. Well,
so I'll
I
be
actually
slower.
keep my ironing board upstairs, so I have to, that way I get my flights of steps in.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. So I might as well multitask.
Yep.
yes, that's true.
But
Okay,
I've enjoyed this so far, really.
good.
Good. So let's just take a minute and go through each one of the blocks
Okay.
and see if there's any specific questions that you have regarding the construction of each of those blocks or anything related to each one. So C was the first one we did. That's the one
Right.
we did
That's-
last week.
Right, that was this one. So it was the two backgrounds and then two colored squares. Were there any concerns or questions about the construction of this? Nope. Okay,
When you get those together, you'll have a lot of different combinations.
yeah, so here's
Um,
two different combinations here.
So to help prepare for when you are going to put your rows together, if you want to take a few minutes and sort of color group them so that if you have green families, yellow families, orange families, red families, or whatever, kind of group them together with the ones that are similar instead of just having a big stack of them that are all mumble jumble, because then that way when you start putting the rows together, it'll help you be a little bit more organized.
I didn't do that.
But you had more colors than I did.
I had more colors.
So what you said earlier about the fewer colors, the more organized you need to be
Yes.
is true.
Yeah, yeah. So Kitty, you're like me. You don't have to worry about that.
Okay, how about block B?
Block B was the three backgrounds and then the one color. Both of my samples here are the same color, sorry. And as a reminder, on all of them, we suggested doing the opening the seams when you press versus normally you press to the dark and then nest your seams. This is extremely helpful. So I highly recommend, if you haven't done it, to definitely press your seams open throughout this entire process. I didn't do that until I was about halfway through, and I decided I wasn't going to go back and repress them all. I kind of wish I had gone back and repressed them. So, okay, so that was B.
And then we should have D.
And then D
You have a
is,
D over there?
no, I don't have a D.
D.
Okay. So there's the D. So that's 2 backgrounds and 2 colored triangles. And I know this is a color too, but this is
The background.
the background color, and then 2 punch colors. Okay, so that was D. So B and D were on the videos that you guys got, okay? All right, so tonight,
Thank you.
we're gonna focus on block E and F. So block E is
Looks like this.
3 colors and 1 background.
You don't have that. There we go.
Oops, oh, sorry. So these are the 2. Okay. So that's what E is going to look like. And
We've got B and D marked up.
we've
there.
got B and D marked up there. So let's see if I can find an E.
What you're going to find is the B is typically going to be around the outside of your heart, and you're going to get a lot of D's in the making of the angles of your heart. So this is a D, and 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 so on. And then the B's are going to be further out. They're kind of like your breakout blocks.
So on this one, this here is
And E.
an E. So here and here, okay?
So far, E, C, D, and E have utilized your background fabrics. So in Stacy's case, that's the white, and in my case, it's the dark purple. When we get to block F is when there are no background fabrics in that one. That consists of all of the colors, the individual colors. Those are the ones that you're going to use predominantly in the center of each one of your hearts. That's where that color combination and mixing them all up is going to be really important so that you can see all the fractals coming out of it. Okay? All right. So let's start with E.
Oh, so we're going to now switch the camera. So are there any other questions before we start with block E? Okay, I'm going to switch the camera now so you can see Renee. So,
We all set?
Yep.
All righty. So I'm going to put my little leader clock in here. Control over. All lined up. We're good now. Okay, so with this one, I got to figure out where the camera is. You're going to take first 2 different color triangles, put them together so that you're going to sew them on the short sides. Much like what Robin was talking about earlier, being consistent in the way that you stitch them is going to be important so that they match up. But the other thing you'll want to consider is these are going to end up connected. Let me see if I can get it in the right place. Where do I need to go? I got to remember left, right, left.
no, we're backwards.
We're backwards.
Here, I didn't do it.
This is one combination. If you put them together on the opposite side, this is a totally different combination. That's important for you to do in order to make sure that you have a lot of variety when you get ready to put your rows together. So when you have your 2 stacks of colors and you're starting to put them together, switch the sides a little bit throughout that process.
And one thing to keep in mind is you're always going to be sewing on the short side of the triangles, and that's where your bias is. The long side of the triangle is where your straight of grain is, and that's going to be on the outside of all of your squares, okay? So just keep that in mind, because I know we've had somebody who's asked that question. They were a little confused as to which side they should be sewing. So always sew on the short side.
And very much like the other blocks, we're going to start right here at the point. This is what I love about cutting with the AccuQuilt cutter, is you know exactly where you need to start, you know exactly where you need to stop. Still have my 1/4 inch foot with the guide on here, just in case I decide that it's going to go a little wonky along the way. I'm going to stitch this. And before I disconnect that or cut that, I'm going to go ahead and get this second half of this block ready, which is one of the background squares and a 3rd color square. Putting them together in the same manner. This one I sewed with the point going toward the inside, so I'm going to do the exact same thing here. Otherwise, I'll be taking it out and I will be adjusting it. And we're going to do the exact same thing that we did before, making sure I lined it up. Okay. And use my scissor cutter, leaves those little tails on the ends. And I've got them chained together. Have my scissors. Just going to cut the small little tail on this end. I don't know if I can hold it so you can see it well.
There you go.
Small little tail on this end and a small, I'll trim this a little bit here. I need a little bit of tail on there. When you start putting these together in the rows, you're going to be handling them a lot. The more you handle them, the more the seams have the tendency, if you don't leave a little extra thread on there, to kind of pull apart at the end. And then when you get ready to stitch them together and you're putting your pin through to find the exact point of stitching so that you get your points all together in the right place, sometimes they'll come apart and they'll end up being a little hole. You don't want that little hole to be on there. Okay, so then we're going to, I'm going to give you this if you'll press these open, okay? So Stacy's going to use the little roller and she's going to press these open for us so we can stitch now together on this long side. This right here. It's going to be what we're going to attach the 2 pieces together. Thank you. It's great to have an assistant. Wouldn't it be great as we're sewing if one person was sewing and the other person was pressing, we always had somebody next to us in order to do that? Just think how efficient we could be along the way.
That would be nice.
Thank you.
I don't think you could afford my services, however.
All right. So I'm going to take my pin. I'm going to try to do this in front of you here and line these up. Take my pin and put it through right at the seam and hope that it comes out exactly on the seam in the back, and it did. So I can line these up. I'm trying to keep it in there so you can see it. Okay. Put a little pin on this side. Now, it does take a little bit of extra time if you're going to go ahead and do this part of it. You may get to the point that putting one pin in works, or you may get to the point that you got this down to a system and you don't need to do that. I try to do it myself because I want my points to match. It's going back to that being kind of wanting everything to be just right instead of being random. That's why I didn't go with 15 different colors. along the way. As Carol would tell me, I just need to learn how to be random.
You need to get wild.
That's what she tells me all the time. Just throw it in there, okay? All right. So I'm going to realign this a little bit here, but I'm leaving my pin in so that I don't lose the connection right here. So the seams are matched up. I'm going to get my stiletto in here. Help me to avoid getting my nail there, which I do have to admit at the beginning of this project that did happen. So I'm a little bit more careful now than what I was before. It's over just a tad bit. I'm off just a bit.
I found the stiletto very helpful with this quilt, more so than other quilts. And I think a lot of it had to do with the precision of those points matching. And I don't know, I just found it to be extremely helpful for this project. All right, so I'm going to hold it up, and there is the center right there. So the points are coming together exactly. And when you're finished, there you go. Stacy's going to press it open. You want my stiletto? No, I got it.
Okay.
Thank you. And using
Close enough.
the
They can't see that. Put it if you want to switch camera.
using this
Hold it up.
roller definitely whoops
See, you have to learn where the
Yeah.
camera is.
definitely helps before going to the iron. And I know you can't see what I'm doing right now, but hold on just a second here. So there, look how precise Renee's, whoops, matching those points were.
Okay.
Okay,
Can we switch cameras back for just a second?
Yeah. So let's switch cameras.
All right. So
Okay,
this one is the one that we just did. And this is another block, E, but all the colors are the same. They're just in a different arrangement. So you'll want to end up with a variety of arrangements of the colors. And like I shared in the video that we sent to you, I create my little lists and I just go through, and with the colors, I just made a little list of light purple with a medium purple with a dark purple, and then a light purple with a medium purple and a pink, a light purple with a medium purple and a rose. Just went through there and did my little checklist because I wanted them all to be a large variety of them. So if you're working, Marlene and Robin, with the 5 and the 6, you'll want to watch and see if you can mix them up a little bit more so that you can get that split color going on. Any questions about that block? That's block E. Okay.
okay.
So when you're finished with B, D, B, C, I can say my alphabet, B, C, D, and E, you will have used all of your background triangles. They would be in your blocks at that point. If you have extra that you cut extra because of the way you cut and you have a few extra, go ahead and make 1 or 2 extra of each of the blocks, because then when you put your rows together, it gives you some options instead of getting down to that last block and saying, oh, well, that color is going to be right next to the same color. You have a variety, then you have that opportunity to put something different next to it. Okay, so we're going to switch up here a second. Stacy's
We're going to switch, and I'm going to do block F. And then I'm also going to show you, okay, perfect, thank you. Then I'm going to show you a technique that I use in case you have to rip or unsew. Let me rephrase that, unsew. So this is the block that we're going to be doing. This is different colors. There's no background at all in block F, okay? So now if we can switch back to the small camera,
there are no two colors the same in block F, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, so I am lining up my quarter square triangles, long edges together, short edges together. And I am going to, since we don't have the single hole needle plate on, I want to start with a leader fabric. And even though I use my single hole needle plate, a lot of times I will still start with my leader fabric. And so got that going. And then I'm going to do this one. And one of these quarter square triangles I cut with the Ohio's star die, and the other one I used my cube. So that's why this top is cut off of the blue.
That's the Ohio Star die that cut that off.
Correct. And then I'm just going to line this up and get my pieces put together there so the raw edges are together. Using my 1/4 inch foot and using my scissor cutter. And then I'm going to pass these to my assistant. And I'm going to let her do the pressing while I get the leader fabric started for the next one.
Pressing on your batiks is different than
Yes.
pressing on the 100% cotton.
So again, you can
the other
see
cotton
that
fabric.
she pressed the seam open for me. So there's half of my square. And then she's gonna,
Okay, that's good.
I probably didn't go far enough.
We can
Yeah, I'll show them that.
this one doesn't want to come apart. They're sticking together here.
Well, because they're close to colors, you know.
It's a color family, and they
It's a
want to
color
hang
family, and they
together.
wanna-
Okay,
they're
so
brothers and
this end,
sisters.
it's that end
Okay.
right there.
So you can see on this end, it's already starting to come together. Let's see.
Split a little bit.
Can you see that little split there? My fingers are in the way. There you go.
There you go.
Okay. So in this case, I'm going to come back and I'm going to go over that area again. I'm not going to sew the whole seam. I'm just going to go part way and cut it that way. And I'm going to trim my,
Press it over.
yeah, if you don't mind. Oops, sorry. Handed that to you kind of weirdly. And now I'm going to use the same technique for matching. So I tried to do my best of getting them, the colors lined up visually. Then I put my pin through. And I'm slightly off. Okay, so now there's the pin. Now I'm going to line my raw edges up, and just like Renee did, I'm going to pin on either side of the pin that I've got going, what I'm going to say is north and south, as I put in the pins going east and west. And then I'm going to remove that pin, whoops, and not poke myself, hopefully. And then start. Look, here we go. And as I get closer, just doing your stiletto, I am So right now, I don't know if you can see this or not, but this seam here has started to curl right by, because it got caught. So I'm just kind of pushing it down with my stiletto. And then I'm going to continue on. And I'm going to stop and pull out. And then using my stiletto allows me to keep those raw edges together. Cut my tail. Cut the beginning. And so now, ooh, I think I did pretty good. Okay, so now Renee's going to press that one open for me. And we're using red thread. Hopefully it's showing up better on the camera for you guys. This one at home I did with my white thread. And so this is the finished block here. Okay. So now I have 2 squares completed with 4 different, well, not really 4 different colors, but yeah, if you can do that, then we'll switch. So here's my 2 completed squares. Now, I used greens in both of them, but they're going to be placed in different areas of the quilt. So, and even if they were next to each other, I would just end up rotating them so they would be in a different location and they wouldn't be next to each other up here at the top. Okay, so I could just rotate them. And that's the benefit of pressing your seams open. Okay, now can we switch to this little camera? Sure. And now I'm going to show you a little trick. And you guys may already know this, I don't know. But if you look closely, this seam is not perfectly matched. Now, I normally probably spend time ripping it, probably not. But because the colors are so drastic, I'm going to, okay? So what I do is I'm not going to rip out the whole thing. I'm only going to rip out that little seam area. And when I rip, I take and I go about every 4 stitches. And I'm using my seam ripper. And I am going to get underneath that thread and clip that thread. So you can see where I've clipped it. Now I'm going to go on the reverse side and I am just going to very gently, oops, the air compressor's going on as always. So now you can see I'm
Hang
just,
on, wait a minute. It'll go off.
it's going to go off in a second. Bear with us. Maybe.
You will. You will.
Okay, so now you can see all I had to do was kind of pull up those stitches. And now I've got a long tail that I can come in here and I can snip and snip. Whoops, sorry, I lost the. And now all I have to do is pull out those little threads that are still there. And if you have one of the seam rippers with the little rubber thing on the top, that's what I really like to use. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to try to realign that point. And I'm going to put that in and it went right through. This time I am just going to put my pin directly through, okay? And now I'm going to re-stitch this. And hopefully this goes well. Again, I'm going to use my stiletto so that that edge does not get picked up. and I'm about 1 stitch away from my pin. And if you look here, again, it kind of grabbed my seam there, my open seam. So I'm going to push that down. I'm now going to remove my pin, and then I'm going to go back through, and now I'm going to cut my thread. So I actually did some overlapping on that. And you can see I actually went crooked there. Shame on me. It must have been when I was fooling with the seam. So now when I open it, it is much better. Gotta wait for the camera to get in focus there. There we go. So the reason why I don't completely rip all the way across is because that is a bias. And the more you fool with the bias, the more it's going to go out of shape. So that's why I only rip a portion of it, okay? If something happens, you're really way off, then you're probably going to need to completely rip out that entire seam and then repin it. Again, I do not recommend when you quilt using steam, and when you press, I always go with no steam, because that then with steam, it can have a tendency to distort your fabric a bit, okay? I think that's it. Are there any questions on what we've showed you?
This is Robin. I have a question.
Okay.
When I look at the pattern that's on page 8, all of the block Fs have 2 of the same color on the opposite sides. Is that just a limitation because of the number of colors they used, and it really shouldn't have that?
Okay, so if you go back to the very beginning, it's showing you that they chose 3 color families. So because there's
Right.
3 color families, that's why you see those opposite.
Okay.
So with the number of fabrics that you have, Robin, and also Marlene, I'm thinking she has 5, right, Marlene? You have 5. Okay, so with 5 and 6, you won't need to have those opposite of each other. But if you only have 3 colors and there are 4 triangles, 2 of them are automatically going to end up being the same. So the recommendation then is to put them opposite.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
great question.
I just assumed they didn't want to spend more printing costs in different color inks. That's what
No.
I assumed.
And I figured it out as I was going along.
Are there any other questions for tonight? Yes, Kitty.
I just have one quick one. We are using a regular 1/4 inch seam and not a scant quarter. Is that correct?
I used a regular 1/4 entire quilt. The instruction says use a scant, and I know Renee.
I used the scant, Kitty. I started using the scant, and then what I found was when I started putting, so I used the scant when I had 2 triangles together on the short side. What I found then when I was combining them, it didn't come out to a 4.5 inch exactly square, and I found some issues with it. So halfway through, I scratched the scant and I went to the 1/4 inch, and it worked out a lot better. So that's why we've been telling you go with the 1/4 inch, because we both tried it a different way to see what would happen. And again, I got the short end of the straw. You know, I got it last week and I got it again this time.
Now,
Thank you.
who's the smart one here?
Way it goes.
Did you find difficulty when you combined the full 1/4 inch and the scant 1/4 inch?
Oh, I went back and I took them out and redid it. Sorry. I just had to because I could see a difference between using the scamp 1/4 inch and the actual 1/4 inch. To my eye, I could see them. Maybe it's because the colors I had, or maybe I just pick up on those things. So I went back and took them out and redid them. There was only, I don't know, 25 or 30 of them, something like that.
He's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, Leslie says she would have
Poor
thrown
Renee. Oh my
Somebody's
God.
on an iPhone waiting in the, okay. We're
Yeah.
having somebody join us right now. So I will tell you that this is a quilt that I found that I did do a lot of unsewing on. And I just learned to accept it because it was what it was. And I found a lot more.
I got it.
You got it. I found myself doing that when laying out the quilt and sewing the rows and the pieces together. It was kind of I had a few boo-boos, and I just had to take care of them. So
Another thing, just to bring it to your attention, we found that our directions, the version or the copy that Stacy has is a little bit different than mine because it told different quantities of blocks to make. So your block F says, both of the block F says 54. Where was the one? Okay, so block E, my version says to make 30, and Stacy's version says to make 31. I ended up making an additional block. So if your directions for block E say to make 30, please make yourself a note that you're going to want 31 of those. And then on block D, my directions say to make 60, and Stacy's say to make 59. So again, this time it was you needed to go 60 because you had to make an extra
So
one.
I had to make an extra block on that one.
So 60 is the correct number there. And then the other two, 18 stayed the same. And block B, my version says 54, and I had to make an extra one to be the same as Stacy's. We looked at copyright dates. They're all exactly the same, so we don't know how it ended up that way, but I ended up checking with her saying, do you have enough blocks? And that's how we found out that it was in the directions. That's a heads up.
Yep.
Okay.
Are there any questions from the videos or from tonight or from the first class that we can answer?
Renee, can you go over how you made your chart again?
Well, let's see.
Which one do you want?
It depends upon which block it is, Robin.
It was the one in the video.
The one in the video. Okay, I got to go back to block D. Let me get my block D chart. Okay. I'm going to try to put it under the camera. So give me a second. I'm going to switch this off and see if I can do this for you.
Locations and then
Okay.
okay.
Okay. We're going to switch you here for a second. Go ahead and
You want me to?
let's try this and see if that works. We're going to try something here and see if it works.
You might want to turn off the light.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I'll turn the whole thing off.
Yeah. Oh, that
makes it a lot better. And I can
Okay.
hold it up a little bit too.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. So I have 5 colors. And I called them, let's see if I can pull them all up here for you. So I had the rose color. So every time I was talking about this color, I called it rose. every time I was talking about this color, I called it pink. This was my medium purple. It kind of looks blue.
Yeah, it looks
It
good.
really looks blue, but it's purple. It's a medium purple.
Well, I
And
watched the whole thing because I just got on and it started at 5:30.
hi, Renee.
Hi, Renee.
If you could mute your audio, it would be wonderful.
Sorry, I just got on.
I know you did. Hello. This is my light purple, and it does. And then this one is my dark purple, and it almost looks dark blue. Okay. So my little chart, Robin, is I just started with each one of the colors. So these are all the rows. These are all the light purple, dark purple, medium purple, and then the pink. And next to each one of them, I listed all the other colors. So this would be rose and pink, rose and dark purple, rose and medium purple, rose and light purple. And I literally sorted the triangles to match this. And then continued it for each one of the rest of them so that I ended up with a pretty equal amount of combinations. And then
Okay.
when I sewed them together, go ahead, Robin.
No, I said I got, okay, thanks.
Okay, when I sewed them together, I also switched this. So if I had the rose on the left and the pink on the right, then I would flip-flop them so that the pink was on the left and the rose was on the right in order to give it more variety. So it's a similar chart for each one of the blocks. Show the backside. There's my other charts. So you can see what all the different combinations were in order to come up with as many different varieties as I could.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sure.
So again, I was the smart one and I chose more fabric colors. So I didn't have to create a chart. I always go for the easy side. If I have to think that much, it's not going to happen. All right. Any other questions?
Renee, are you still there? You'll have to turn your audio on if you are.
Oh,
I don't know.
I don't know. We might have lost her.
Yeah, she did. She decided if we were to have her turn her microphone off, she was gone.
She was gone.
Okay.
So now we don't meet again until the 6th of May. So we've got 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, if you can get as many of your blocks put together as you possibly can, and if you can't get a whole block F and D done, if you can at least get some of them done, because on the 6th, we're going to start talking about the layout and putting the blocks together and some of our lessons learned on that.
There are a lot of lessons learned in that process. So if you could end up with, I think we calculated 10 to 15 of each of the blocks, it would give you enough to construct the different rows. If you look at the back couple of pages, all the way back to 8 and 9, 8 shows you the construction of the top 9 rows. And then I can put it here for you. So you can switch it back. We can put it on here. Okay. So 8 shows you the construction of the top 9 rows. And then page 9 shows the construction of the bottom 9 rows. None of them are the same. Every single row is different. So the placement of the blocks is really important in order to end up with the heart shape on the inside of the background heart, as well as all of those that are scattered on the outside. The ones on the outside, once you get past this connection, like I'll show you on here, once you get past this connection right here, these outliers out here, it's exploding. So if one of them explodes and it goes in a different direction than the diagram, that really doesn't matter as significantly as if the exploding here has this dark one in the middle of where it should all be the solid color. So as we think about putting them together, the positioning of the blocks and which blocks you use is going to be important.
Take it from me. That's very important. That's where I did a lot of unsewing and resewing. So, all right. So if you have any questions in the meantime between now and the time of the 6th of May, it is the 6th, right? Yeah. You know, don't hesitate to touch base with Renee or myself, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. It's a little bit easier if you're in the store and have those questions, because then, and if you can bring the sample, because that way we can see what you're doing versus trying to do it over the phone without any visuals. At least it is for me. So I'm a slower learner than this one over here.
Oh, no, that's true.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so we will see you on the 6th, and our goal is, once everybody has completed their quilt tops, we want to get pictures because we want to get them posted onto the Sew-A-Lot site so we can see all the different combinations that people came up with. I think that, because there's going to be no two quilts alike.
That's right.
In this process. We're all using different colored fabrics, and I think that's going to be really neat to see the differences. Okay? All right then, guys, we will see you on the 6th, and have a great 2 weeks. Sew your hearts away now. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're
This
welcome.
was fun tonight.
Good.
Hi, ladies. Thank you.
You're welcome. See you.
Okay.
That says stop share, right? That's what I do. Stop share.
Okay, now what's next, Leslie?
Oh, it went away. Oh, there it comes. Okay.
And
And
meeting for all.